1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. We're missing one. Okay. Council will come to order. All rise and salute the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Please remain standing for a moment of silence in honor of our servicemen and women, veterans, and those who have given the ultimate sacrifice. The clerk will call the roll.
Councilor Anderson. Councilor Kamel. Here. Councilor Condon. Here. Councilor Crowe. Here. Councilor DeMaria. Here. Councilor Matheson. Councilor Murphy. Here. Councilor O'Malley. Here. Councilor Spatafora. Councilor Winslow. Here. President Council Seeker.
Here. Under the provisions of the open meeting law, for those of you in attendance, please be informed that MATV is recording this evening's meeting, so beware there will be audio and video recording of tonight's meeting. First order of business.
Committee reports. Committee report number 30519. The Personnel Appointments Committee recommends the following 3 candidates be interviewed as finalists for the vacant city clerk position, term to expire February 28, 2021. Carol Ann Desiderio, Gregory Lucy, Timothy Phelan, Esquire.
Motion to receive the committee report.
On Councilor Crow's motion to receive the committee report, all those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? The committee report is received. Councilor Crowe for the committee.
Thank you, Madam President. The Appointments and Personnel Committee met on 2 days in June, the 27th and 28th, to interview the 6 candidates that were sent to the committee to do the preliminary interviews. And we really were quite impressed with each and every one of the candidates. So we're very pleased that we have people to move forward that we feel very excited about. There was a couple of others that we said they would be great in the city, just actually not quite this job. So again, that was a good thing. The original plan was really to interview in September. However, after having some conversations and talking with the council president, I think we all kind of felt like in some way we're putting somebody at a disadvantage to get them in September. A lot's going on in 2020 besides an election. There'll be, well, before 2020 coming up. We got a lot of other things going on. So really to give some of the best chances of success to kind of move this along. So we're thankful that the candidates could meet with us tonight and the council could come together on a summer's evening. So we look forward to interviewing our candidates this evening.
Thank you. The first candidate is Carol Ann Desiderio. Come on up.
Hello, good evening, everyone.
Good evening. Want to just state your name for the record?
Address too, or just name? I'm Carol Ann Desiderio.
Okay. We're going to go in the order of the questions that everyone has been received, okay? Just so everyone is a little timeline. So Councilor DeMaria is up first. Hold on. Go ahead.
Okay, thank you, Madam President, and thank you, Councilor Crowe, for the introduction. Before I ask your question, Carol Ann, I do want to say that the Personnel and Appointments Committee had a great 2 days doing this. Wonderful applicants that came forward, and big thanks to our HR Director, Anthony Ciccarelli, for vetting through that in that confidential process. So I'm up first, and my question, as it was in personnel, is how would you describe your management style and experience?
Okay, so I currently manage 130 poll workers. When I served as the executive assistant to the mayor, I was in charge of his constituent services.
Can you talk a little?
Oh, yep,
just
sorry.
so the
Better? Got it. Okay,
MATV
thank you.
can get it.
I had a small staff under me in that capacity as well. I've worked for over 10 years in the Ward 1 volunteer coordinator, which was a volunteer position, but I've also had many professional positions before I came to the city of Malden in which I managed people. So I do have some extensive history there. How I would explain my style as a manager, I really think that it's important to lead by example. I think it's very important to know your job, to know your values, to know your integrity, and to let that shine every day in the way that you do your work. I think that your staff will respect you if they know that you're right there with them, alongside of them in the trenches. I would never ask my employees to do something I wouldn't be also willing to do myself. And I do think that the key is just constant learning, constant training, always just kind of improving on everybody's strengths. Knowing your employees is important because then you know best how they learn, and then you can set them up for the best amount of success that you can give them through that constant training.
That's great. And just a, excuse me, a follow-up to that. How do you organize and prioritize your workload? Because in the clerk's office, it's so busy.
It's very busy, and you know, I think that anytime you've got multiple responsibilities, which we do in the clerk's office, it's always best to start with the end goal in mind. So quite often, I'll create a timeline for something, whatever we might be leading up to. On a weekly basis, it would be, an example would be our weekly committee meetings and our city council meetings, but on an annual basis, you're talking about larger projects like elections and things like that. They don't just get done in a matter of weeks or days. You have to months long. So you always start with the end in mind. You can build out your timeline, organized accordingly, and then I think it's important to reprioritize every day and sometimes every hour, just depending on what you're looking at, because sometimes that's what the situation calls for. And so you have to be like ready to switch up on the go, be flexible, but keep all the balls in the air at the same time.
Thank you very much. Great
Yes, ma'am.
answers.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Murphy.
Thank you, Madam President. Good evening,
Good evening, Councilor.
Desiderio. I actually have a two-part question here. I would like, if you could give us an example of how you resolved or help resolve an employee conflict situation. I'll give you a minute to think about that.
You know what, I've actually given a lot of thought to this because it is a question that comes up often. I thank you for asking the question. I had a position previous to the city of Malden where I had a particular employee, a gentleman, who worked for me. We had cultural differences between us that made it difficult and uncomfortable for him to have to answer to a female boss. And the fact that I was younger than him didn't help at all. So it made the situation very uncomfortable. I could have taken the attitude of, well, I'm the boss and you're going to do it this way, but I didn't because that would have only made the situation work. That kind of, you know, power struggle wasn't going to solve the problem. What I did instead was I tried to connect with him on a personal level, on a human level. We talked to each other, independent of the job. We kind of had some alone time together. We learned a little bit more about each other, a little bit more about our differences. And then in that, we got to know each other as people first, and we got to build a respect and a trust for each other. And in that way, I was able to defuse that situation and make it a healthier working atmosphere where he was more comfortable and I was more comfortable, and together we both actually did what we came there to do, which was to get the job done.
Thank you. Okay, this is another example. Could you give us an example of how you've led a team-building effort? And you can, depending on the situation, you can use either a personal experience or a professional experience. If you...
A team-building effort. Okay, well, I think the first thing that comes to my mind when you talk about that is when I went to work in the mayor's office. I was in charge of constituent services, and I had 2 employees that worked underneath me. They were great people, great candidates, young, and very new in their careers. And we as an administration were new because, you know, the mayor had just been elected at that time. So every day was really like building policies of how we were going to address the constituent services within the city of Malden. How were we going, even sometimes, how are we going to answer the phone? How do you take a phone message at the executive level? Because it's a little bit more than just your average phone message. So, you know, I spent a lot of time with those employees, building morale, training, again, getting to know them personally one-on-one so that I could kind of reinforce their learning styles. And I mean, we got there. We just did. Yeah, we trained along the way and we got there. We had successful constituent service department because of that.
Thank you.
Councilor Camel.
First of all, I want to say thank you for coming out tonight.
Oh, it's my
and,
pleasure to be here,
yeah,
Counselor.
absolutely.
Thank you.
So this probably might hit close to home, given what you deal with a lot. But all around us, both in private industry and government, advancements are being made that make it easier for our residents, customers, citizens to be engaged, listen to, and access services. What are your plans for leveraging technology and other tools to improve how our residents interact with the city clerk's office?
Yes, that's a great question because we are a little bit behind the times in our city clerk's office. So right now, if you need a vital record, you have to actually write us a letter and mail us a check. Same thing with dog licenses. And so I am working currently with the software company that manages our dog licenses. They're called GoPD. They have this great app. They've got a full website online, but also a mobile app. We can't use most of the technology that they offer, that we're paying for, because we don't accept credit cards. It's a simple problem. The treasurer's office, you can pay your water bill with a credit card online, a parking ticket online. I want to see the city clerk's office come up to that level. I want to be able to have somebody go on cityofmalden.org, order their birth certificate, it gets mailed out the same day, and the money is just taken care of electronically behind the scenes. It would make it so much easier for our residents, and I think it would bring in more dollars because it would just make the technology easier to kind of run along the way. Right now, I believe that we aren't getting every dog licensing dollar that's available to us. What I've learned in working with this software company is that they've got a social media program that they're offering to our city for free, but we're not using it because it's advertising their mobile device. So until I can take those payments online, that free marketing is not benefiting us. If we were able to benefit that marketing, we could be taking in up to $69,000 in possible lost revenue for dogs that we don't know about who live in the city. So advertising, marketing, education to the people in the city of Malden, and then making it easier for them by being able to do all this stuff online, that would be a great goal for our office to kind of undertake. Yeah, you're welcome. Thank you for the question.
Councilor Condon.
Thank you, Madam President. Can you tell me about a time when you successfully communicated official information to the public?
Well, I think that I do that on a regular basis, sir, because I do like to keep the public up to date with what's happening, especially in an election year like this. So I post every couple of days, not a couple days, I'm sorry, every couple of weeks I'll post updates to the general public, and then it gets shared out by some wonderful advocate people that we've got in the city as well, like MaldenPolitics.com and things like that. No, Facebook. You understand what I mean. People want to know what's happening in their government. People want to know what's happening in this election. So on a regular basis, we are letting people know who's pulled papers, who brought in their signatures, who's made it to the ballot, is there going to be a primary or a preliminary, who's going straight to election day, what are the deadlines that people need to know about. That's the kind of stuff, we do that all the time, disseminating information to the public.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Councilor O'Malley.
Thank you, Madam President. Thank you again for coming out tonight. My question has to do with succession planning.
Yes.
How will you address succession planning in the city clerk's office? Are you willing, and how would you train and prepare office staff to be able to take your place as the city clerk?
Yeah, that's a great question, Counselor. I appreciate that. So that's such, well, Karen Anderson retired, I don't have to tell you guys. We lost 32 years of institutional knowledge. Thankfully for me, I've been trained by her. I've been mentored by her, and even though she's been retired for a few years now, she still continues to share her knowledge with me, which I'm forever grateful for. She's the best we have. I would continue that with the next generation of employees that are coming up behind me. It's not only professionally wise, it's a moral obligation that we have to mentor those that are coming up behind us. I've been mentored in my life by some brilliant people, and I would feel that obligation to move that forward to the next generation. With that being said, I can tell you that I've already begun in my own responsibilities as far as elections go, creating steps along the way, instructions, who to contact for this problem, what to do by which date when you're planning for an election, what needs to be done in June, the year before the election, what needs to be done 6 weeks out. I've started documenting all of that. I've actually sent that document to you at one point a few months ago. This council asked me to send that document out, which I did. I call it my election checklist. It's only one part of what we do in the city clerk's office. There are so many other aspects of it, but I would move forward in doing the same kind of manuals, timelines, and checklists for other responsibilities as well in this position, because I think that's important to leave that information behind. Not only do we use it today as a reminder to ourselves not to miss anything, but it's also perfect training manuals for employees to come in the future.
Absolutely. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Councilor Winslow.
Let's see, got me. Carol Ann, voter participation has declined significantly in the past few decades, especially in municipal elections. To counter that trend, new initiatives such as early voting and Vote 16 have been implemented or proposed as ways to increase voting rates. The city clerk's office plays a critical role in elections and in commenting on and implementing these new initiatives. Please talk about your experience in developing and implementing new voting initiatives or some other similar new city program that a city clerk would have a role in. So it's really about innovation, so thanks.
Yeah, so early voting came to Massachusetts in the last presidential election, 2016. I mean, it took some time for us to get used to it, to understand the law and to understand the policies and procedures. I think 2018 went much more smoothly. Something I am proud of, that my office was issued the Gold Medal Award for providing substantial voter opportunities for residents in early voting. I'm very proud about that. I'm happy to say that we have that. That's something that's in the office. So I think it's very important to take early voting as it was handed to us by the state of Massachusetts. And they said, these are the minimum amount of obligation that you have to meet. But we should be able to take that and then each time we do it, evolve it and kind of grow it a little bit more. So pre-registration for underage kids that are coming up right now, that's one way that we do it. So now somebody pre-registers when they get their driver's license, and the day they turn 18, I register them to vote, I send them their acknowledgement letter. Congratulations, this is where you go on election day. There's been some talk. I had a meeting one day with Councilor Kamel. We actually, on your idea, I believe, we talked about having early voting even in municipal years. I think that's a great idea. With the funding and the staffing levels in my office to support that idea, I think it's a great idea. It's not something we're ready for this November, but it's a goal that we can work towards in future years. I think also taking early voting to the streets is another great idea. So the way that we do it now is we set up this room that we're sitting in right now, the council chamber. It's a voting location just like you would see on any other election day. Anybody who lives in the city of Malden can come to this one location and vote. However, if we tied in portable voting to places like movie night at the library, or maybe we've got PTO meeting and we can get people to mobile vote at Malden High School, things like that I think would encourage more participation and maybe raise our numbers. So yeah, there's definitely ways that we can do it. I've spoken to other cities about some of their ideas and how they do it, and I would be open to including that and looking forward. How can we just improve it a little bit every year so that we are increasing those numbers? You're welcome, sir. Thank you for the question.
Thank you. Councilor Crowe.
Thank you, Madam President. Thank you again for being here. I'm going to take it in a little different direction. Okay. So given sort of the controversy surrounding the census, the 2020 census that we've all heard about, what can the city and the city clerk's office do to ensure a full count? And sort of the follow-up is, and what impact do you anticipate the count having on sort of the redistricting process that will most likely happen after?
Sure. So the federal census happens every 10 years. My 9th year anniversary with the city will be in September. So I've never actually gone through a federal census yet, but I can tell you it's already begun. The process has already begun because they start 2 years in advance. So I've gone to a couple seminars, I've had some training, we've had some packets already that we've had to talk about vacant buildings, new buildings. So we're in the second stage right now of the federal census, even though it's not even 2020 yet. So there's actually a ton of work going on behind the scenes. It's a huge concern, just because you want to make sure that you get to everybody in the city. So we've got people who live in the city but maybe aren't reflected on our city census. We've got people who live in the city who maybe can't read the documents when they come in. So I think it would be great to use our city resources in our outreach advocates to kind of help make sure that we're translating when it needs to be translated. We're helping people understand the questions if they don't clearly understand them. There can be some language barriers in the way a sentence is structured, so bilingual volunteers can help us maybe with that kind of stuff. I think it's very important. I've also been in contact briefly with Karen Anderson, who's the director, Karen Hayes, who's the director of the Senior Center, and she's going to also be helping to put together a team that we can have these people out on the streets and make sure that these forms are getting understood properly, translated properly, and focused back to the federal government. It's important because it does have to do with our redistricting, our representation in government. So it is important. It's no small task. It's going to take a lot of work. I hope to get a lot of support from the city council as needed in doing that. But yeah, again, with that comes the redistricting, and that will come down with me. That would be a matter of me working diligently with you, with our state delegation, making sure that all those pieces are put together. It's been a long time since it's been done, so we'll all be in it together at that point, Councilor Crowe.
Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you. And there would be me. The central mission of the city clerk's office is to serve our residents, and this requires having a dedicated, committed team who will lean into that mission. A solid team, in turn, is a result of a well-defined process and good communication, which are fundamental pillars of leadership. What immediate actions will you take to improve communication and cohesiveness of the city clerk's office?
Yeah, that's a great question because it's kind of one of those, what are your first 30-day priorities going to be? And one of them is kind of working with the staff that we have now. I think that we've got areas of opportunity when it comes to building morale, open communication, open door policy with the management, cross-training and making sure that everybody is, really responsible for helping everybody out. We've lost that a little bit in the past few years, and I want to get back to that because we are such a small office. If one person is on vacation, the work doesn't stop. We still need to know how to serve the public, and that is our highest priority. Serving the residents of the city of Malden is our highest priority. So the open communication, the cross-training, and the morale building is going to definitely be a high priority for me in that regard.
Thank you. Does anybody have any follow-up questions? Councilor O'Malley.
I have two follow-up questions. The first one is from my original question. I was debating whether or not to ask you then or to wait. You had mentioned developing kind of a training manual for the elections department. One of my other questions was basically related to that, developing standard operating procedures manuals so that any area of the city clerk's office and their responsibilities can be done, whether or not the person's been trained or not. You had said that that was something I think that you were looking to do.
Yeah, that'd be a great idea.
How do you think that process? Because I almost feel like it's such a, there's so many processes going on in the office that it's almost hard to keep track of. Is there the knowledge base currently to do that? Do you think that we would be able to recreate that, or is that something that we would have to kind of outsource to Karen if need be?
I mean, she would be extremely helpful in polishing to make sure that we haven't missed anything, but I do think that we do have the knowledge base in the office to do that. That office, it's a small office, but it's a tight-knit office. They're professional women who know their job. They've been there a really long time. Carol Burgess has been there a long time. She's great at what she does. She's got so much attention to detail. She knows the vital records laws inside and out. So yeah, definitely, on all counts, the knowledge base is there. We just have to find the time in the organization to be able to do that. I think a great opportunity for when we could probably start looking at something like that would be after the November election. We're really going to have to focus on, with the first of the year or the first month of the year, whenever it may be, the move to our new building. We're not bringing file cabinets and stuff like that. We really need to organize what we have. We really need to downsize empty files, get rid of old documents that are allowed to be gotten rid of, and then that would be a great time, I think, to really say, okay, this is licensing. This is how licensing is done. This is the schedule fee for licensing, and start documenting things that way. There's nothing like a fresh start. I'm really looking forward to moving the office into the new building. I know you guys have worked so hard on it, and I appreciate that. And I think that would be a great opportunity for us to say, okay, let's start anew. What are we doing? What can we do better? And how do we document it?
And I think you're right in terms of right now it's keeping the lights on. And do you think that there is, with the current staff level, enough people to do that after the election? Or do you think that the office could grow? Is it fine at the size that it is?
It's not exactly fine the size that at the size that it is. No, we could definitely, I know you hate to hear this, and the budget is in place, we could use help. We could use another full-time position in that office, and especially if you do see fit to vote me in for this position tonight, a huge concern that is going to have to be moved on immediately is writing the job description and filling my position. There are things that I'm working on right now that the new assistant registrar of voters is not going to get an opportunity to see firsthand until like 2020, because there are just some things that only come around once a year. We can't waste time in training my replacement. It would be great if we could do more than just keep the lights on. I appreciate the fact that you see that. Yeah, we could use more help, and we could use, I would just encourage you to move immediately, or HR to move immediately in replacing me as soon as we possibly can. We don't have time to waste.
Thank you for your candidness.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Councilor Murphy.
Well, I was skipping over what's in front of me, but I think you might have just answered the question that I wanted to ask you. But I'll give you the opportunity to give me a different answer if you think of something else. And the question is, what do you see as the biggest challenge if you were appointed as the city clerk? Coming into the office.
I've got a couple responses to that. One is a challenge to me currently, and one will be a challenge to me if I do get this position. I would say that if I am promoted to be the next city clerk for the city of Malden, my biggest area of opportunity would be utilizing proper use of parliamentary procedure. It's not something I do on the job on a daily basis, but there are 3 pieces of information that I keep on my desk and I go back to all the time, and that is the city ordinance book, the city council rule book for the year, and my Robert's Rules of Order. So I continuously look back on that stuff, review that stuff, try to continue to learn it as I go. Just because I'm not in the position of city clerk doesn't mean that I don't want to educate myself in order to be able to step up when and if the time presents itself. That time is now. So that would be an area where I would probably need support as a challenge. Second part of that answer, a current challenge that I have, regardless of what happens tonight, is our poll worker numbers are diminishing. And so I have a huge concern over the next couple months to really be pushing for recruitment, to increase our numbers, to increase the diversity of our poll workers, to make sure that we're covering bilingual poll workers. Asian-speaking workers are going to be a priority, and proper training. So when the time comes around, I mean, it's very difficult. If you have an established polling location with one new worker, it's okay because everybody can kind of guide them, and we've got a manual that they can refer to for any given item. But when you've got a precinct that maybe has a new warden and then 2 or 3 new poll workers, we've got a problem there. So recruitment and staffing is going to be a real challenge for me in the upcoming months.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Kamel.
Hi. So I'm going to follow up my earlier techie question, and I like what you said about processing payments. And I just want to ask about another facet of that. Where would you say some of the shortfalls? So we have a lot of great ways of, sharing digitally what we have, what's happened in the council, papers here, or GIS systems, things like that. Where would you say there are additional shortfalls and things that need to be digitized in terms of documentation that would be shared with the public?
So I know in the past we've put out some documents, maybe posted some documents that were bad scans or not really as legible as they could be or nice looking as they could be. And I don't think that's okay. I think that we should always be putting our best foot forward whenever we can. So one way that I can see that there's a change that's already taken place is our new City of Malden website. So when we post something to the website now, we don't print it and then scan it and then repost it and that kind of stuff. Cuts down on some of the clarity electronically, I think, when you do that. So how we do it now is that we post the original document straight from the Word, the Word doc. The website converts it on its own to a PDF, so it's a clearer picture, but it also makes it so that ADA software can read it. And that's something that scans don't do because it can lead to gobbledygook with the translation and stuff like that. So I think that you're going to see less of those issues that you're referring to right now, and that's the #1 way at this point that and everybody was trained on that website. Ron Cochran from the mayor's office has done a great job with multiple trainings along the way. He's got like a PowerPoint presentation, and he's very careful to teach us, like, this is what the ADA law says now. We've never had to do it this way before, but now we do. Here it is, and so we're all learning, but I think it's a great start in that direction. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor DeMaria.
Thank you, Madam President. One of the largest roles we have as city councilors is drafting orders or ordinances. Do you have experience writing an ordinance or assisting us with that?
Yes, ma'am. Actually, thank you for asking that question because I have a story that I love, I'm so proud of. When I was in the mayor's office, this body may remember a time when there was a paper put forward to muzzle specific breeds of dogs, no questions asked. And at that time, we had a lot of people from the community come forward. There was a lot of uproar. People didn't like that. Animal rights activists didn't like it. So there was a lot of discussion. At that time, the mayor asked me immediately to kind of start researching the pros and cons of what this would mean. So I put a team together. We had our animal control officer, we had Councilor Murphy, we had many advocates from the community that came forward and helped us to understand dog psychology and state laws and what happens when you muzzle a dog and how does it make it look when an innocent person is walking down the street. Are they more fearful for a dog they don't necessarily need to be afraid of? In the end, what happened was that the mayor ended up actually vetoing that paper, and he said, I don't want to just veto this, I want to send something back in return, because he did recognize that our dog ordinance was kind of out of date and needed to be updated. So part of that team and part of the research that we did was how do we update our city ordinance, and I worked closely with the director of the Board of Health, Chris Webb, on drafting a new city ordinance in regards to the dog and the muzzle ban. That was a great experience for me. I loved being able to work collaboratively with those people. I loved being able to research it, pros and cons. These are the facts. Say what you will about the politics of whether or not you agreed with the mayor's veto. These are the facts, and so we presented him with the best information that we had at the time. It was a great experience writing that ordinance. I look forward to being able to do more of that. I think that that would be great. It's a great challenge, and it will expand my knowledge base in this job. In the end, as the story turned out, Councilor Murphy, you know this, Mayor Gary Christensen and Councilor Barbara Murphy were actually honored that year by the MSPCA as People of the Year. Yeah, human heroes on behalf of all the dogs in the state of Massachusetts for the work that they did on that ordinance. So that was great, something I'm proud of, something an experience of learning I'll never forget.
Thank you very much.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. Me again. I have a follow-up question. So as you know, the city clerk's office has gone through a challenging last couple of years trying to adjust to the loss of knowledge and leadership from the associated retirement of long-term clerk Karen Anderson. If you get this job, you will find yourself in a position of having to bring that office back together as a collective unit, putting the past behind you. In doing so, you will be in the position having been a colleague of the same people you are now in charge of leading. Tell me how you would approach this unique challenge with particular focus on the dynamic of going from peer to boss.
Yeah, that's such a great question, and it's always a concern. Anytime you have somebody that goes from peer to supervisor, it can be very challenging. Change is hard regardless. If we have me or somebody else come in as the next city clerk, change is hard. But I think that this office, as I said, very capable women, very professional women. We're a tight-knit office, we're a small office, and I think that if I lead by example, treat my employees with respect, honor their knowledge and what they know, and not only what I'm going to tell them to do, but what they can actually show me and how we can learn together and integrate this office, I don't think we're going to have a problem moving it forward. I have faith in this staff. I have faith that proper leadership will take this department into the next decade, and that we'll be okay with that. I have a lot of respect for my staff's abilities, my coworkers' abilities.
Awesome. Thank you. Councilor Winslow.
Yeah, I know, a lot of the interaction between the clerk's office and the council happens, through agendas and the Legistar process and that, data tool. I sometimes think we're not utilizing that as effectively as we can, and that all the public information that comes to the council is not getting up there. So how would you improve that process and work with the staff to get more of that complete information up?
Interesting question, Counselor, because I don't use that software on a daily basis, but I've been trained on it. I've utilized it in the past, even though I don't use it all the time on a daily basis. But the way that it works is that when you publish it, it sends it out to a forward-facing part of the website. And I actually think you're correct. We're not utilizing it as much as we can, but I think the area of opportunity with that would be for you guys to actually learn it and use it more. The city council isn't using it as much as they can. Other department heads aren't using it as much as they can. There's definitely more stuff that we can be doing with it, and I think that that's knowledge-based information. Let's do some trainings and kind of get that information out there. But people can go on to like the Legistar calendar portion of our it's kind of like the back end of the city website, and it will show you agendas, it will show you meeting minutes, it will show you things like this will be videoed, and you can click on the video and rewatch the entire meeting. So the stuff is definitely there. I think we just have to market it more to the people who should be using it, and that includes the public as well, but also I think this body could probably use it a little bit more as well.
Okay, yeah, no, I know in terms of when we're like particularly drafting ordinances, sometimes I think that was a little bit of knowing, especially if there's a lengthy process like rules and ordinances, it was not always clear on what draft we were working on. So that's just the type of thing of
Gotcha,
just
okay.
having a little bit more clarity there in
A little
terms
more
of
clarity in the way that
minutes
we're doing
and
minutes.
drafting
Yep.
and knowing what piece of paper we're actually working on as a committee. So yeah, so
Yeah.
tracking changes is something
Yeah,
that I think we.
that's great feedback.
So,
I
yeah, so,
appreciate
yeah,
you
so, yeah.
saying that. That's really good
yeah.
feedback, because it's supposed to show, when you click on the paper number, it's supposed to show the history of the paper. So you ideally would be able to see, here's the most recent, this is where it was amended, this is the change with the amendment. So yeah, I understand what you're saying. Point taken. We'll have to be more clear with the way that we're doing minutes
Yeah,
and posting that information properly.
Because I think, I know, especially like in the cannabis ordinance, which took a long time over, two
Huge, yep.
years. There's information lost in the process, and I think that was something I think we need to work on. It just, we ended up spending several, subcommittee meetings kind of rehashing stuff we had already done, and so, I think that's something that, and then it's like, oh, we already talked about that 6 months ago, and it was hard to sometimes. So that's just the type of thing of really knowing what paper we are working on in the subcommittee, tracking the amendments in that process a little bit better, not just the minutes or whatever. So
Got it.
that's
I
just one of
understand
the
exactly what
things.
you're saying. It's,
Yeah.
it's valid, and, yes, it's now on my
It's a
list.
challenge. It's a complex thing. So, but I think it's sometimes that's just one of my comments or questions. But
Thank you
good to
for
know
that.
where
I
you're at.
appreciate the
Thanks. All right,
feedback.
Thank you. Great.
Thank you. Councilor O'Malley.
I'd just like to piggyback off Councilor Winslow's statement question. I think one of the challenges we have faced, as he said, is not only the fact that it's difficult for us to track the changes that we've been making. We've also found that even after we've ordained an ordinance, that ordinance is actually not changed. And so I almost feel like whoever gets back into the role is going to need to do some investigative work of what's actually happened the last few years and kind of go backwards to make sure that all the things that we've done officially in the official record are actually reflected in the documents that govern how we operate.
Yes.
That's a huge challenge.
Yes, you're absolutely right, and it's something that has been discussed in my office, in our office at length. It's something that Patty and I have discussed. Morgan is on that. We understand that there might be some gaps in the past few years, and it's something moving forward. And that's part of what we're doing this summer, since you guys are in recess, is catching up on that kind of stuff, making sure that these projects that have been maybe dropped through the cracks are not forgotten. We're bringing them back up again, updating ordinances, making sure that the current ordinances are on the city website, things like that. And auditing our past minutes history is part of those conversations that Patty has talked about. Absolutely, yes.
And to the point of technology, I mean, if maybe it's worth bringing in Granicus or the Legistar company as a consultant for the new city hall, so that maybe we all have iPads, or the city clerk has an iPad where you're just doing the changes there live, and it kind of shows what's going on, so you don't have to worry about then going back to the office and redoing and reliving everything you just sat through again. If you're doing it in a live time, you probably free up a lot of time for the office, as well as make it maybe more accurate.
Yeah, so the idea is that, and you see Patty right now typing furiously as we're talking about all of this stuff. The idea is that she's taking live minutes right now, and she's plugging in everything that you just said is what she's doing. And so then when this meeting ends, she closes it, it stops the video, it uploads
automatically
into
uploaded.
our, over at the office. And then tomorrow when we go in and we read the notes again and just clean them up and make sure that they're proper sentences and periods are where they're supposed to be. And that's the part that maybe we've slacked on, and we have to take more attention to detail in that area. I understand what you're saying, and it's valid, yes.
And I think that, and thank you for pointing that out, I actually didn't know that was happening, so that's actually a really great point. I think it's also the bigger challenge is where I think a lot of the work is done in committees, where that process is not happening. So if we mimic that process that's happening here live on
Absolutely.
the floor in committees, it probably would bring a lot of efficiencies.
Yes, agreed.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Condon.
Thank you, Madam President. I know you mentioned that, you're in charge of managing the 130 poll workers that we have, but prior to being hired with the city, can you tell me what your management experience was prior to coming to the city, and whether or not you had direct reports under you?
Yes, sir, I did. So I have 25 years' experience in administration and office management. I have worked in different industries, but my skill sets are very transferable between those industries. So I've worked, for instance, for a property management company that had properties from the border of Canada all the way down to Florida, and I would have to kind of oversee people in those different areas. I've worked in a school. I was a school administrator for a little while. I had to oversee the teachers that worked for the school. So yeah, I do have experience in my past before I came to the city in regards to managing people and working at that level.
Thank you.
You good? Okay, thank you. Anyone else wish to ask any questions? You are good. Thank you for coming.
Thank you all
You can breathe.
for allowing.
Oh,
Oh,
yes, Councilor
Could we
Murphy.
maybe ask Mr. Siderio if there's anything she'd like
Sure,
to tell
sure.
us that we haven't covered?
Is there any questions you'd like to ask us?
Or not questions, but anything you'd
Or
like to tell us that
anything
we
you'd
haven't
like to
asked
say
you
that we haven't
in
asked you?
closing?
yeah, a couple things, I think. Maybe just a quick, brief closing statement. I'd like to just tell you that, well, not sure how to put this. So one thing that I do find that is a struggle for me when I apply for jobs, and this is no different here, applying and interviewing in front of you people. I thank you so much for appreciating my work and appreciating my length at the city, that you would give me this opportunity to interview for this position. One thing that I do find that's a struggle for me is the fact that I haven't finished my bachelor's degree. That's something that's a stumbling block for me, and I'm gonna respectfully ask that you guys don't allow that to be a stumbling block for you as I sit here before you tonight. I believe in lifelong learning. I believe that we have a responsibility to ourselves to always move ourselves forward. Finishing college wasn't a privilege that I had in my particular situation. However, I will tell you that my bachelor's degree, or in past experiences, a law degree, does not suit necessarily what's needed for this job. It's not indicative of integrity or intelligence or work ethic. So I really would like to just push home the point with you all that I am an intelligent woman who's capable of learning, and that's what you need. It's not enough to just have learned it, but you need to continue to learn along the way. I was raised in Malden. I've raised my children in this city. I'm happy to be here. I've invested 9 years of my professional life in this city, and even more than that on a volunteer level, as you did, Council Sika. We have similar backgrounds in that aspect, and I respect that. And I would ask you guys to just really consider my dedication to this position, my dedication to my work ethic, and my desire to just take the next logical step in my career building as I devote the next 9+ years of my professional life to the city of Malden. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
Does anybody want to take a few-minute break, grab a drink?
Sure.
Restrooms, okay. 5 minutes, 5-minute recess.
All right, Mystic Station is.
5-minute recess. Okay.
Council's back in session. Everybody's good? Okay. The next candidate is Mr. Gregory Lucy. Come on up. Good evening.
Good evening.
Just state your name for the record, please.
My name is Greg Lucy.
Good evening. Councilor Di Maria is going to be the first question for the evening.
Thank you, Madam President, and thank you, Mr. Lucy, for coming tonight and applying for this position. My first question, and I have two, is how would you describe your management style and experience?
Okay, management style, I would say that I'm somebody that doesn't really beat my chest telling you that, I'm in charge and that sort of thing. I think what you do is you show up every day to work, you're conscientious, you show up 10 minutes before work, not 10 minutes after, you stay later if you have to. And I think what happens is the people that are working for you or working in, in this particular thing, we'll just say the city clerk office, they'll see that you're a sincere person, that you're conscientious, and I think that they, it goes a long way. You have to have honesty. You have to show people they care. It can't just be just about the work ethic. People have to trust you, like you, and I think you'll get results. I've kind of done that all my life, and I've done pretty good up to this point.
And in your experience?
My experience, I have, on my resume, I've been involved with the insurance agency that's owned by my family. I've been down there for 28 years. It's a long time. I purchased the agency in 2005 with my brother Scott. Scott's an attorney, but he's down there. So I've run the office for the past 14 years. That goes everything from, it's a client-based business. You need people skills. I know there's a lot of commercials for all sorts of insurance online and that sort of thing. We've been able to keep many families because people get to know you, they like you, they trust you. So it's definitely a people business, and through that time, we've been successful, and I think it goes a long way. And I think every position I've ever had, it's always dealing with the public. So my understanding of the public, it's sometimes can get fickle on you, but I've gone out of my way on many occasions on all sorts of different situations. I think I have pretty good people skills. I think a position like the city clerk office, that would come in handy. A lot of times it'd be the first time people really come to the city, whether it's registered to vote or, that sort of thing. So I think it's good to, I've always been a big defender of Malden as a city. I think oftentimes people, a lot of times, they seem to maybe see the shortcomings or the struggles or the things that maybe they don't feel that the city does as well. But I think there's a lot of good in the city. So for my entire life, I think I've promoted city. I mean, I've always listened to people when they've had complaints, but I've also brought to their attention the things that Malden does right as well.
Yep. And second part to that is, how do you organize and prioritize your workload?
Well, depending on what it is, I think one of the probably the most important thing to do is always try to be prepared. Some things come unexpected, but I think if you do your homework on things, if you're prepared and what could come before you, I think you'd generally have good results.
Okay, thank you very much.
Well, thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Murphy.
Mr.
Councilor
Lucy,
Murphy.
good to see you. I have a two-part question also, similar to Councilor Di Maria. The first part of it is, could you give us an example of how you resolved or helped resolved an employee conflict situation?
To give a specific example, I'd have to really give that some thought. I've always had employees, I think probably in an office situation like I have been for the past 28 years, or situation with the city clerks, it's important to get to the problem before it happens. So if you pay attention, if you, just, listen to what's going on, if you pick up on things with the employees, a lot of times things don't just happen quickly. Sometimes things build up. So I think just being aware of paying attention, being out in the office, being active, you can see that employee A, employee B might be having, a potential problem. So I think to head something off like that, you just have to be very hands-on management, and, I think, I know I would do that, so I would try to head it off before it, gets too bad of a situation.
Thank you. And the second part of it is, could you give us an example of how you've led a team-building effort? And that can either be in a personal or a professional way.
Okay, a team builder, I'll give you an example that you sit on the board, Council Murphy, is the formation when we formed the Malden Teenage Residence Center. I think of all the things I did as a counselor, one of the best things I did was get involved with that situation. I think over time, what's lost was how difficult it was in the beginning to form MTech. We had to do a lot of things. It wasn't my idea. Marie Brown and Kathy
McMillan.
Kathy, excuse me, sorry, Kathy. Kathy McMullen, kind of started the idea. I got involved with it, but once I got involved with it, we were able to form a 501c3 nonprofit. We incorporated. We formed a board. We went out, and this is when we just were going up the Y every other Friday night, and we had an idea, and we just sat around. There was 11 total board members, and I think what was fantastic about that board was not one of the 11 people had a child that was going to use MTech, because no one had anyone in the high school nor coming up to the high school. So it was just 10 other good people, good Malden citizens, and we went out and did all we had to do to start raising money, and we raised all that money to, outfit 1 Salem Street, and it was just really a success story. And I think I'm sorry to see now Councilor DeMaria was generous to us as well, but we went out and we really solicited the community, and it's a success story. And it hurts me a little bit to know that building is might not be a home to it, but it was the perfect place for the MTech to go. But that's just an example of something that maybe gets lost through time. How difficult that was to do that MTech, but it was very rewarding.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Councilor Kamel.
Mr. Lucy, thank you very much for coming tonight. All around us in both private industry and government, advancements are being made that make it easier for residents, customers, and citizens to be engaged, listen to, and access services. What are your plans for leveraging technology and other tools to improve how our residents interact with the city clerk's office?
Okay, that's another one. Malden, I think, has come a long way with it, absolutely. Between, Click Fix It and, 311 and, all the robocalls that they give, and, street cleaning, all the things that affect people's daily lives that sometimes it's easy to forget. So they've come a long way. I know at the city clerk's office, you'd probably be dependent on a lot of how advanced the city goes with it all. But it's something that can't be ignored. That's how people communicate now. The old ways of, even in my business, the walk-in business, that sort of thing, you hardly ever see it anymore. People just do everything different. So you have to change with the times or you're going to get left behind. And the government's no different. So we have to make it easier as people as possible, to no matter what we're trying to get them to do. And I think you have to work, with the IT department, and other folks in the city to really promote what you're looking to promote. Sometimes, no matter how much you do it, you still get people say, "Well, who knew?" Or, "I didn't know that," and you'll always get that. But you should never try. You should do all you can just so that you're not being accused of that.
Thank you. Councilor Condon.
Thank you, Madam President. Can you tell me about a time when you successfully communicated official information out to the public?
Official information to the public. I was probably on the council or something like that when I had official capacity. I'd have to think about that, Council, but it would probably be something that when I was on the council or school committee that I would have conveyed to the public of something happening that pertained to them.
Councilor O'Malley.
Thank you, Madam President. Thank you for coming up tonight.
The council.
My question has to do with succession planning. How will you address succession planning in the city clerk's office? And are you willing, and how would you train and prepare office staff to be able to take your place as the city clerk?
That's a good point. That's how I agree totally with that, by the way. I think it's important. It's an office of 4. I know one of the candidates was interviewed earlier today, so that's very important to me. I wouldn't want to lose any help. I think I'm the type of person that a succession plan is very important, by the way. Even in my business, it's important, because if you don't have a succession plan, either sell out, you'd sell my agency, that sort of thing. So you never want that to happen. Something you work so hard to build up, handed down from not handed down, but, from my father. So I think you'd work with the 4 other individuals. Not all 4 probably would try to be city clerk. But there's certainly, the person interviewed today, I certainly has the potential, or she wouldn't have been here earlier. I'd work very closely with all 4. I think one of the things that, and how I would operate or do operate is that I would learn everything doing in that office, whether it's a small task or the bigger tasks and the public tasks. I don't think you can lead an office unless you know what everybody does, how they do it, and why they do it. So I would give anyone in that opportunity, if I'm successful with this, is to, work with me. We'll build up a great office. And so my succession plan was when I leave, whenever that time would be, if I'm successful, that someone behind me in that office would have a good opportunity to take the position.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Very important, though.
Absolutely.
Councilor Winslow.
Greg, thanks for coming out tonight. I know my question is about innovation. Voter participation has declined significantly in the past few decades, especially in municipal elections. I remember when your dad got elected against Butch Ginetti, I think the turnout was well over 60%. Now we're at 20%. So to counter that trend, new initiatives such as early voting and Vote 16 have been implemented or proposed as ways to increase voting rates. The city clerk's office plays a critical role in elections and in commenting on and implementing these new initiatives. Please talk about your experience in developing and implementing new voting initiatives or some similar new city program that a city clerk would have a role in. So just in a situation where you've had to innovate, that's really the question.
Well, I ran at 7 elections, so I always tried to get voter turnout. I can guarantee you that. Sometimes it's frustrating, and one thing I'm troubled by, and I think, Councilor Winslow, we've been at enough things that I've maybe been speaking that I've said this many times, but I'm sure you've heard me say it. When you talk about voter turnout, one thing I get troubled out is that the local election, how few people vote in the local election, which to me it's amazing because, a lot of times we can, argue about the politics of Washington or the politics on Beacon Hill, but the things that affect us every day is people that we can see at Dunkin' Donuts, we can see at Stop and Shop, we can see out in the street. And those are the people we get to talk to one-on-one. We're not sending an email or talking to an aide. So, it's always an amazement as you go down the president to the state elections and the congressional elections all the way to the poor local elections, which you think people would have more interest and take the time to go out and vote for the local official, the person that you might know, personally. So it's always troubled me. I think they're going to early voting and things of that nature. So probably have to, we've had a couple of them. Probably work out the kinks a little bit on the early voting, and that's probably the wave of the future. Now, whether that increases voter turnout, you do get some cynics that say no matter how many times or how easy you make it for people to vote, the people that vote, vote, and the people that don't vote, won't vote. I don't really believe in that. I think it's, you can't not just try. So, it's the type of thing where you have to have the people. In Malden, it's difficult because of the transient population. So, I get in the local elections where if you have someone that lives in an apartment building that came in here and might only live here for a year or two and probably be gone, they know the senators, they may know the senators, they may know the congressmen, but they may not know the local officials. I don't think that's any reflection on the local people, because I know you do work hard. You're the people we have the most access to. That doesn't change, and that doesn't, make people, they still have to vote. I mean, I don't know how you make people vote. I mean, it should be part of their makeup. I think a lot has to do with how you're raised. I was always one that, I never missed I missed one election in my life. I said this at the first interview, and that was because I was at Worcester State and I got my absentee ballot the following day, and I never sent it back. Other than that, I mean, I voted in every no matter what the election was. So sometimes it starts at the home. You know, if you brought up that knowing that voting is important, I think you carry that on like I carry it on to my son. So to answer your question, I guess there's no good answer. I think there's more ways that you can vote now. And it's just up to the people. I mean, they do have a duty. You can give them all the tools, but they need to really step up as well.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Crowe.
Thank you, Madam President. So, thank you for being here.
Thank you.
Given the controversy around the 2020 census that we've all heard about, what do you think the city and the city clerk's office can do to ensure we get a full count? And then, with all the building that's happening, what is the impact you anticipate the count having on the redistricting processes most likely to follow?
I think that's one of the problems coming down the road is the redistricting. And I've actually thought about that. I think, once the census come in, obviously there's been a population shift in, kind of Ward 4. Now, that just doesn't affect Ward 4. It affects those wards around it, whether it be 1, 2, or 3. So that there'll be a shift, and I think we have to be prepared for that when we get the numbers. I do, and a lot of times I've mentioned is, 5-2, Ward 5-2 was part of a redistricting shuffle back in 2010 that I thought was very unfair. They took 5-2 and put it in the Melrose district. And to me, that was came as a complete surprise. I didn't know about it till Council Murphy told me about it, and then, we couldn't get them to change that. But they took one of the 2 top precincts in the city, voting-wise, and they just shifted it out of Malden's representative district and put it in Melrose. And, I certainly, if I'm part of any kind of redistricting, if I'm fortunate enough to get this position, I certainly wouldn't have handled it how that was handled. And I think it's something that we have to be prepared of. We don't start, a year from now, we have to start thinking about it. I know the districts are drawn up by blocks, so much per population, but they're blocks. And I think we have to start kind of thinking ahead of it and not just wait until, it's upon us that we have to redistrict some wards that, you're not going to make anyone happy. But, I was part of one redistricting that I certainly wouldn't have, I wouldn't be part of anything like that for the city.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Lucy. It's my turn. The central mission of the city clerk's office is to serve our residents, and this requires having a dedicated, committed team who can lean into that mission. A solid team, in turn, is a result of a well-defined process and good communication, which are fundamental pillars of leadership. What immediate actions will you take to improve communication and cohesiveness of the city clerk's office?
Okay, I'm not up there, so I don't know all the goings on, but, again, I am someone that I don't hide in an office. I don't, I'm not a hands-off person. I'm not a meddler. I'm not a micromanager, but I do want to know what's going on. I want to, and it goes beyond, it's not just what's going on in work, because employees can have things going on in their personal life that's affecting how they're doing it. Things of that. You never know what's going on in someone's personal life all the time. So I think you have to be aware of everything. I think so far, and I can only go by so far in my life, I think I've had a pretty good run at being respected by people. I think that I've always had good relationship with people, and I think that would most certainly carry on to the city clerk's office. You can't have, if you have 4 employees, you can't have 1 going in one direction and 3 going in the other. It doesn't work that way. So you really have to get together, you have to find out the goal you're all trying to do, and that's to serve the city of Malden. I don't necessarily agree with when people say I pay your salary, because I don't think that's fair. But in the same token, there's the public perception of how the city operates, you always want to keep in the most positive light you can, and how that is, it can't be one person or two persons do it, the whole office has to do it. So no matter who comes in that city clerk's office, you want them to feel welcomed, you want them to feel like they're part of, the city's, doing right by them as a citizen. So, but I plan on, get to know all 4 employees very well. And again, not just in the work sense, but if something else is going on in their lives, I want to make sure that they feel comfortable enough that they could come and talk to me. Because I think, we all do have certain things that go on in our life that maybe people are unaware of.
Thank you. Follow-up questions from anybody? Councilor? One second, okay? Councilor Di Maria.
Thank you, Madam President. So, Mr. Lucy, one of the things, as we all need on the city council is help with writing ordinances. Do you have experience writing ordinances?
Well, it's funny. First of all, it's, sitting here, because we can, I know the focus so far has been on office staffing and, other things. But, again, another important part of the city clerk is being, what they do for the city council. And, I served 6 years with the council, so I certainly get it. I know when the council president, I think most of you have been council president, there was nothing more comforting, during a meeting when the camera's on and there's people in the audience and there's some type of parliamentary procedure or something that you may not be familiar with, but it's on the city council president. There's nothing more comforting than turning around and doing one of these and whispering to the person next to you, with at the time was the city clerk, and she would be able to, figure it out or at least help you with it. So. So I've had, obviously, the ordinances of the city I've certainly been involved with. I've been involved with a bunch of committees. This summer, when I knew I was going to apply for this job, usually I'd get a good book on politics or a couple of John Grisham novels. This summer, my summer reading is the city charter, city ordinances, the council rule book, and Robert's rules. Oh, so that's my summer reading list, and that's what I've been reading. So as far as writing an ordinance, I feel very comfortable doing it. I may have a legal department if there's any question. But like I say, I've been where you are, so a big part of the role of a city clerk is to, help out the city council in any way they possibly can.
Great, thank you very much.
Welcome.
Councilor O'Malley.
Thank you, Madam President. One of my follow-up questions has to do with what you said earlier about while you're not a micromanager, you want to understand how everything in the department is run, because it's difficult to manage people if you don't know what they're doing. So as part of that, to ensure that we don't have any gaps if someone leaves or if there's turnover, would you be willing and open to creating standard operating procedures about how the different processes are done so that it's documented? So if someone is out for the day or needs to step into someone else's role, they can just kind of pull this document out? Absolutely, and that's just good practice. You shouldn't have only one person in the office knows something and the other people don't. So the shared responsibilities in the cross-training and all that stuff, that would be an absolute must on my part. I wouldn't want just one person to know that job in the office. But that's also in the case where, when I said I'm hands-on, but I'm not a micromanager, I too would be somebody that would, like I say, even the most trivial job in that office, as the head of that office, you really need to know what everything goes on. But I would be a big proponent of that, to have people cross-train and two people, at least two people know, what each other does. Absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Murphy.
Thank you, Madam President. Mr. Lucy, what do you see will be your biggest challenge, your biggest personal challenge, if you are in taking over the role of city clerk if you're appointed?
Well, probably the biggest personal challenge is getting up to speed on the office. But that's something that, I've never worked in that office, so it's not something, where, you're in there so you kind of know how things are flowing and that sort of thing. I mean, you have to do that, so but that will take time. I don't think it's earth-shattering. I think if you have people that, and I'd have to tend to guess that some of those employees have been there for a while, so they know what the job does and how they function. But my biggest challenge would know every day what that office is supposed to do. What happens in January 1st that office needs to do, whether it's licensings, whatever that may be. What happens in February in that office? Is there something that Secretary of State requires? So at each point of the year, I'm sure there's certain expectations that office needs to produce something or required to do something. So I guess my biggest obstacle is getting into that office and just finding out, what everything needs to be done at what point of the year. And that would go with any position. But, again, I have to keep on saying it till I stop saying it, I guess. I'm the type of person, I'll be there, I'm not going to be a person that's in my office, and just let things flow inside the department. I like to get my hands dirty. I know if something goes wrong, I'm to blame and I should be blamed. And so in order to prevent that, you have to be very, very proactive, which it's just in my nature, but that's how I would be.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Kamel.
Hi, yeah, just to follow up on my previous sort of technical question. A number of the things that folks have to do interact with the city clerk, whether getting dog licenses or accessing different. We have some things that have been digitized, but there are other things that we could still improve on. What would be the process you would use to start to prioritize those things and make a list of those things? How would you approach sort of that nebulous, we're not quite sure what we need to update, and what would be your first steps to start to unravel that?
To unravel what? Excuse me?
So the next things that should be modernized and digitized in the office.
Well, you have to see what's available, and there again, I mean, not being in the office, not being ever been there. You talk about, say, different voting systems or that sort of thing. I'm not familiar with it because I've never had to deal with it. But again, I get up to speed very quick, and I will get up to speed. And the idea would be to make that office run as efficient and as clean as possible.
Great, thanks.
Councilor Winslow.
Greg, I'm not certain if this system was in place when you were on the council, but right now we use, I believe it's called the Legislar system, to track papers, our minutes, our status of amendments, committee stuff. And so one of the things I'm asking about is what would you do to make sure we're using that tool fully and making sure we're accurately reflecting the decisions, and particularly in subcommittees and other type of things that the council makes, because that's an important role the clerk's office plays in relation to the council. So.
Yeah, no, they didn't have that system when I was there, but listen, you're the keeper of the vital records. You're the keeper of the records for the city. It's your responsibility if there's a system in place. Do you not think that it's being followed now?
I think it's a complex system and a complex way we interact, and I think that there's at least some information that's being lost in the translation, and so I mean I think it's a challenge in terms of whether if we're fully in compliance with public records law, whether we're doing a good job in terms of tracking what's happening at our subcommittees, and sometimes having to not having quite as easy access to prior amendments that we're working on as we're working on stuff. So it's just the type of thing of having it be a more effective tool. Like if you work and see what happens at the state level, it's very much easier to understand where a particular paper is, what the status of amendments are, So it's just something that I'm just trying to understand whether it's just a limit of capacity of the office or whether it's some type of thing of just understanding.
Yeah, no, understandable. No, that's, it's an important question. I mean, again, I'm not familiar with the system or what their system they're using, but, you know, I think you always have to track amendments and track subcommittees. So you think there's a problem with the minutes as well, subcommittee minutes?
I mean, I think it's more of, particularly related to amendments, like, you know, we have a paper that gets introduced at the council, gets referred to committees, and there may be amendments that happen. Those may be documented in the minutes, but it's not clear in the system that we're on the second version of that paper that gets referred. So there's a little bit of, you know, particularly for transparency for the public, to see, you know, what is a subcommittee actually working on, and also as a paper comes back to the council. So it's just, I think it's, you know, it's not always transparent about what paper is being discussed at a subcommittee meeting at a particular time.
Okay,
So that's the, yeah, so that's just, you know, one of the things that I think we grapple with. You know, like I say, we have subcommittees at sometimes when we come to a subcommittee meeting, there's different versions of papers that are there, so it's a.
Amended the previous, but then we got the wrong version.
Okay.
So that's.
Okay.
Was missing the amendments we did the last time.
Right, so that type of thing of just better tracking of the work that's happening in subcommittees over time and that type of thing. I don't think it's a minutes thing, but it's how we're using that tool.
Yeah, that's fair enough. And, you know, again, I didn't work with it when I was on the council, but that's fair enough what you're saying. You know, one of the things, the city clerk, I mean, there's a couple things in that. What you're saying is, number one, it's the city clerk or the city clerk department responsible to make sure you have accurate information like that and keep track of the records. Second thing is the public has the right to know. You know, I followed a little bit about the executive, committee minutes. You know, and I thought to myself, I said, geez, now that I'm thinking of it, I don't ever remember taking minutes when, you know, when we were in executive committee. So, and I don't think it was designed to hide anything. I think it's just, you know, you're in the, you know, you move on from and you just never voted for the minutes. I don't think it was devious you're trying to hide. But, you know, the public may not see that. So I think it's very important what you need. Plus, there's requirements you have to do. So, you know, I'd rather look for, you know, going forward, you do, you know, not only the best you can, but you know, Counselor, if you're saying something like that is going on that you're not, I think it's important that it stops and you get the accurate amendments or whatever you're looking to do. I mean, the city clerk works closely with the council, and it's the city clerk's job to make sure that, you know, you have the tools to, you know, hold your meetings or do whatever you need to do, you know, on the council floor. So.
Okay. Thank you. Okay.
That's fair enough. You know.
Yeah. No, just
yep.
something. Yeah.
Thank you. Councilor O'Malley.
So to piggyback off of Councilor Winslow's question and his concerns related to what we've experienced over the last few years of you know, changes being made to papers in committee, and that not actually being reflected the next time we met, which makes us spend a large amount of time reconstructing our previous meetings in order to get back up to date again. In addition to that, what we've discovered, excuse me, is that even after we've ordained an ordinance, we've discovered that the ordinance is not actually being changed in our official records. And so one of the things that I want you to be aware of is if you end up getting the city clerk's position, there's going to be some investigating required over the last few years to find out what has actually been done officially and what needs to be brought up to speed on paper. I think it's going to be a yeoman's task to do that, or a Herculean task, but it's just something I think you should be aware of. No, not necessarily a response needed.
You're trying to discourage me, are you here?
No. But that does bring me to my next question. During the last search for a city clerk, one of the big concerns we had was the fact that the individual had a private practice. You obviously are the president of your insurance company. You had earlier talked about succession planning. Do you have a plan involved in terms of how you would manage that situation?
Yeah, let me just say, one of the, when they posted this position, I really wasn't looking for a career change. I was very content in what I was doing, very successful, what we have. Someone said, geez, you'd be good at that job, city clerk. And I said, why would I want to do that? You know what I mean? I got a good thing going on here. But then I thought about it, and I think because of a lot of aspects of what a city clerk does, I said, yeah, I think I would enjoy that at this point in my life. In order to do this and apply for the job, one of the things I had to do was sit down with my brother Scott, who's still in the office, and said, okay, here's what I'm thinking of doing. What do you think? I would if my brother Scott had told me that, no, you gotta stay here, I wouldn't have been applied. Mm-hmm. The business certainly has changed. I have a good staff down there. They know procedures, they know policy, they know how we do things, they know our clients. They have one staff person that's been there 11 years, or going on 11 years, another one that's been 5. If I thought for a second that my business would suffer for applying for this job, I wouldn't have applied for the job, because I've worked too hard to build the business to what it is. But having said that, being somewhere for 28 years, and insurance isn't the most exciting thing. I think that's why I didn't go into it until I was 34, because it never really, it's not too sexy what you're dealing with, but it's good. You help a lot of people, and you find it's very rewarding in a lot of other ways. So I wouldn't have, if I didn't think the business could function without me being there, I wouldn't be applying. But everything's changed. I think the industry's changed. The insurance, we're dealing with more people, but it's less paperwork. Everything's scanned. Everything's modernized. The companies do a lot of things. We don't send mail out. Councilor Condon, I can see why the post office is going out of business. So it's all changed how we do things. At one time, we had 5 or 6 employees. I mean, you just don't need that many employees to run a business anymore. I think I'll be missed in certain instances, but it doesn't mean I can't do something on a weekend. But my commitment would be to the city, and I know the agency's in good hands with my brother Scott.
Thank you very much for that. Actually, you mentioned going in at 34. One of my first jobs out of college was insurance, and it definitely wasn't a sexy job.
Yeah, but if you own your own business, it's rewarding. It has its perks.
Thank you. Anyone else follow-up? Anyone else for a follow-up? Councilor Murphy?
I'd like to ask Mr. Lucy if there's anything that he would like to say.
I have a follow-up. I just wanted to make sure nobody else did, because after I did my follow-up previously, somebody else had another follow-up. So I was just making sure nobody else had a follow-up. So I have one last question, Mr. Lucy. As you know, the city clerk's office has gone through a challenging last couple of years trying to adjust to the loss of knowledge and leadership associated with the retirement of longtime clerk Karen Anderson. One of the finalists for this job is a current staff member in the department. Therefore, if you get this job, you will find yourself in the position of managing someone who wanted the job and lost out to you. You will have to bring that office back together as a collective unit, putting the past behind. Tell me how you would approach this unique challenge with particular focus on the dynamic of managing someone who is a valuable resource to the department, but who was also in competition for this job.
Well, let me just say this. The person that you speak of, it's not someone that I do not know. I have a history with the person as well. I've known her probably for 12, 15 years in all different capacities. When I purposely waited in my car, when I was looking at my watch, because I didn't want to come in the middle of an interview, and I waited as long as I could. Then I came in, and she was just finishing. So before I sat here, I talked to that person. I wished her luck. She wished me luck, and she said if she wasn't successful, she couldn't think of anyone else better that she'd want to work with. So again, it gets back to human nature being what it is. I certainly understand. If there's to be disappointment, no doubt, but there's no question in my mind that not only will I not be able to work with that person, we'll work well together, and we'll get the office up and running and to the best of its capabilities. And I think that, whenever that time comes, if she is still around, still in the office, and she'd like to reapply, the office is going to be better for her.
Great, thank you. So on that note, is there anything that you would like to add that we didn't cover?
First, I'd like to thank you. I'm impressed, July 23rd, coming out for a meeting. I mean, I know once the budget's passed and all that, the ideas and the 4th of July parties are behind the ward councils. You like to get a break for the summer, so I appreciate you coming out. I also appreciate that you did in July and now waited for a couple months. I think it's all, in the end, that will work out better. But thank you for taking the time to do this.
Great, thank you. Have a nice night.
You too. Have a good summer.
Thank you, you too. Okay, so the next candidate that we had scheduled after Mr. Lucy, Timothy Phelan, has withdrawn from the position, withdrew his application for the position. So we will no longer have a third interview this evening. The interviews are now over. Councilor Murphy.
Yes. I'll make a motion to open nominations.
Do we have a second? Okay, on Councilor Murphy's motion to open nominations, seconded by Councilor DiMaria. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Nominations are open. Councilor Condon.
Thank you, Madam President. At this time, I'd like to nominate Greg Lucy for the position of city clerk.
Do we have a second? On Councilor Condon's motion, seconded by Councilor DiMaria, to nominate Gregory Lucy. All those in favor? No? You can have a discussion.
Okay.
Councilor Murphy?
No, I'm just, plus I'd like to I'd like to nominate Carolyn Desiderio.
Yes. I was just going to do them separate.
Separately, okay.
Is that okay?
Yep.
Just a clarification, if we vote simply for the nomination, that's still.
So when we vote, you're just going to say the name of the person, correct?
Yeah.
That's how we've done it in the past. So we'll accept both nominations, and then when the clerk calls the roll, instead of you saying yes or no, you're going to say the name of the person that you wish to vote for. Okay?
Thank you.
Okay. So on Councilor Condon's motion to nominate Gregory Lucy, seconded by Councilor DiMaria, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed? Okay. Nomination has been received. Councilor Murphy's motion to nominate Carol Ann Desiderio. Do we have a second? Second? On Councilor Murphy's motion, seconded by Councilor Crowe. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? The motion has been accepted. So now we're going to, anybody have any questions or anything?
Call
Any
the roll.
discussion?
We're gonna, any discussion? You would like to have discussion, Councilor Canal?
Am I the only person?
Okay,
I will defer.
you'll defer.
Oh, you want me to
Councilor
go?
DiMaria.
Okay, wow, I'm getting first all night tonight, wow. So I do have to say that this is such a difficult choice for me. I think both candidates were amazing. They are amazing. I'll go back to my first thank you, and that was to our HR director for facilitating this through personnel and appointments. I think the 2 days that we met, we had amazing electricity. There was great collaboration in that, and it's very hard because this is my second or third clerk as I've been on here, most of us I think, and it's such a vital position. And for me, I do have to say, as council president last year, managing the office is most imperative, is to be able to know what you have to do and to make sure everybody is doing the best they can do for the city of Malden harmoniously. And there was a lot of issues last year, and I just don't want to go back to that. So that's my pitch for management as the number one requirement. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Camille.
Yeah, to echo the sentiment, I mean, we had two incredible candidates in front of us. I'm just going to sort of highlight what I see as strengths from both of them. Of course, Ms. Desiderio has, deep, detailed understanding of our documentation and licensing procedures and requirements of the city, sort of the ins and outs of the daily process of the city clerk. And also, one of the most important aspects is running our elections. Handled high-pressure situations with limited resources and has executed on that a number of times. Super important. On the other hand, looking at Mr. Lucy's background and level of experience, he has a high level of management experience, as Council DeMaria had alluded to, in running his own company and also being president on several boards. I think that's very crucial, as also his experience here on the City Council previously, and on the school committee, and managing sort of what could have become conflict situations that were handled in a better way. And that sort of segues into what we also need from the city clerk, which is strength in parliamentary procedure. I think that's been a severe lack in what we've had over that. And I mean, but we need that to run properly for the benefit of our city, and I think having that is going to be crucial. So I just wanted to put those two things forward, or my thoughts on those strengths for both of the candidates forward as we discuss these.
Thank you. Councilor Winslow.
Yeah, I really appreciate the work of the committee coming up with the candidates and narrowing this down. I think we have two very worthy candidates who have, over their lifetime, been very dedicated to Malden and have showed that both in their personal relations and their work for the city. So I think it's a great thing that we have this choice before us. I saw with Carol Ann during the interview and knowing with her work, the attention to detail, her passion for the job, I was impressed by her openness to innovations. I think for Mr. Lucy, I think I know through his work in the city and in his business, I mean, insurance is a people business, and city clerk that's an important role. And Greg has always been a great person to work with as a school committee member, as a counselor. And so I think that those are some great strengths there, and his dedication to various things. So I think we have a tough choice, but I do think that personally I would favor Ms. Desiderio because of her just passion for the job, and I think that really came through the interview, that she will be able to handle the day-to-day work from day one, as well as the work that's going to be needed over the next several years in terms of elections, in terms of the census. I think Greg and Mr. Lucy could handle that as well, but I think through the interview process, what I've seen, that's where I would come out. Thank you. Great.
Thank you. Councilor Murphy.
Thank you, Madam President. It certainly is a tough choice with two very qualified candidates, but also, for me personally, two people who are friends. So it makes it even more challenging because one person or another is not going to get the job. And I think both of them would do a very good job. I think they both have their hearts in Malden. And Mr. Lucy has a lot of management experience in the sense that he's run his own small company. And I know that he is a hands-on person. As he said, he doesn't like to micromanage, but he would be very hands-on, and I know that he would do everything he could to learn that job. I think what Ms. Desiderio has in her favor is that she did kind of grow up under Karen Anderson, our previous city clerk, for the last few years. She's had, been mentored by her. She understands the day-to-day workings of that office, not just from the Register of Voters point of view, of which she handles now, but also the Vital Records point of view. She's always jumping in everywhere in that office. I think she has the skill set, the excitement, the integrity, the knowledge, and the ability, as she said in her own words, to continue learning to make the city clerk's office a first-class operation. Mr. Lucy would do a wonderful job too, but I think that day-to-day knowledge to me is what's tipping the scales for me in favor of Ms. Desiderio. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Crowe.
Thank you, Madam President. I think, a number of people have said it, it's a difficult choice, but two really, really very strong candidates. And, again, friends, and I've worked with both of them in different capacities. So I know that they both really have attention to detail, easily can, get things up to speed and, understands the multiple workings. I know that Ms. Desiderio really has the election side sort of down pat, and Mr. Lucy, I think his strength is really in the legislative kind of thing, being on this side, working with Karen Anderson as the council president, knowing what the needs of the council are as well, and at least working in the offices when you're the council president, you're kind of in that office, you sort of see. So I think this is a very difficult choice, and wherever we come out, I think will be a better office for it. Right now, I would lead more towards Mr. Lucy. I think the two of them would make a fantastic team. I do think that working together to kind of really move things forward. I do think that talking about learning from each other and still having a succession plan, I think that is one of the ways that we would go, but I'm open to debate.
Thank you. Councilor Condon.
Thank you, Madam President. Having had the benefit of working with so many city councilors over the years, without giving away my age, I lost count at about 55 different city councilors. Well, Greg Lucy, all the difficult situations you can find yourself in as a city councilor, he always had the ability to take a step back and look at all sides of any kind of an issue, and I never, ever saw him lose his cool. He always had the ability to sort things out and make the right decision. He has management skills, in my opinion, in the way he knows how to deal with people that can bring that office together. I wouldn't anticipate any kind of problems with either candidate if he was nominated for the city clerk's job. I know he could bring this office together, and they need that. More than anything else, they need somebody that's going to lead them the way they should be led, because they certainly have the skills in that office to do a great job as people that work in the city clerk's office. It's just a question of being led by the right person that has the right experience in dealing with people, plus the fact that for so many years he's worked on the city council, interacting with, should I say, the legend, Karen Anderson, who we all have had the experience of doing. I know they have a very close relationship over the years, and I wouldn't even hesitate to think that anything he lacks on the day-to-day experiences in the city clerk's office. He worked for years in the treasurer's office, and I saw the way he interacted with people and the way people respected him back then. So I respect both people that came before us tonight. Both did a great job, but I have to lean towards Mr. Lucy. Thank you.
Thank you. Counselor O'Malley.
Thank you, Madam President. First, I'd like to address the timing of our interviews. I think that we have an election coming up in November. We have a census that's coming up. And I know in the past, we've waited to the fall to do the final interviews and to hire someone. And I just want to thank the Council President and the Chair of the Appointments Committee, Councilor Crowe, for moving forward with this now. I think it's crucial that we do it now and that we have the whole summer to make sure that this person is getting caught up and that the department is running at full steam by the time our elections happen. So thank you. I think it was the right decision, and I just appreciate that. I think that we definitely know that we have a very difficult decision to make here. We have two very qualified individuals who I think would do great jobs. And I think one of the main drivers behind what I'm thinking here is succession planning, because I think that it's something that we've lacked not only in this department, but in many departments. And so it's with that in mind that I'm kind of making my decision tonight. It's been a lot of great discussion tonight, and I just appreciate everyone having open and honest dialogue. Thank you.
Thank you. So I am hearing that I did not close the nominations. So
Motion to close nominations.
all those in favor?
Aye.
Hearing no further nominees, we close nominations. Thank you. I apologize for that. So we are going to take a roll call vote. You ready? So everybody knows what they're going to do. They're going to, instead of a yes or a no, you're going to say who you're voting for. You have a question?
One more thing to the
Sure.
dialogue. I concur with Councilor Condon that I think it's to lead in a level-headed, calm manner really does speak volumes. I think Mr. Lucy has proven that. Sometimes we act out of anger in situations, and that actually doesn't become of a good leader, as something I experienced last year. So I just wanted to bring that to everyone's attention, that to be a leader, you do have to stay calm. You have to know what's going on and not react. So that's my last 2 cents. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, clerk will call the roll.
Councilor Kamel.
Lucy.
Councilor Condon.
Mr. Lucy.
Councilor Crowe. Lucy. Councilor DiMaria. Councilor Murphy.
Caroline Desiderio.
Councilor O'Malley. Councilor Winslow.
Caroline Desidero.
President Council Seeker.
Lucy.
Mr. Greg Lucy wins the nomination.
See here? Congratulations.
Okay. Counselor Crowe. Yes. The next order of business. Will you
What's the
read
next
it?
order of business? Hang on.
Hold on, she's going to read it.
The council appointment of the city clerk for a term to expire February 28th, 2021.
On Counselor Crowe's motion
To appoint
to appoint Mr. Gregory Lucy.
City clerk for the term to expire February 28th, 2021.
Okay, on Counselor Murphy's motion, seconded by Counselor DiMaria. The clerk will call the roll.
Councilor Crow's motion.
Say that again?
Councilor Crow's motion.
We're walking way too much
Sorry.
if we're looking like each other now.
I thought I said Crowe, seconded by Counselor DiMaria. That's what I thought. I'm sorry.
That's okay.
Okay, clerk will call the roll.
Councilor Kamel?
Yes.
Councilor Condon?
Yes.
Councilor Crowe?
Yes.
Councilor DiMaria? Yes. Councilor Murphy?
Yes.
Councilor O'Malley? Yes. Councilor Winslow?
Yes.
President Council Seeker.
Yes.
The new city clerk is appointed.
Okay. docket is clear. Does anybody have personal privilege?
Yes.
Councilor Condon.
Thank you, Madam President. I would like to maybe prepare the council that I'm hoping that we can have an August meeting, since we met every week in July. But no, as you know, we've had 4 meetings across the city on citywide residential parking, which involves from 1 a.m. to 7 presently. But the plan to get this program moving would be to review all the input we received from the various meetings at the Beebe, the Linden, the Ferryway, and the Salem Wood, and have a meeting in August to hammer out any kind of issues we might have, and then have a final meeting in September where people can come and hopefully we'll all be on the same page. The goal is to have it in place before January 1st so that people will have advance notice that their cars have to be registered in the city of Malden and be paying excise taxes to the city of Malden in order to park their cars in the city of Malden. So I hope that everybody can clear their calendar. Maybe we can have a meeting the second or third or fourth week in August, because the first week I'll be on vacation. However, this is like 7th meeting since we broke for July 1st recess. But I hope that everybody can make it and add their input to what we want to see, a good program put in place. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor DiMaria.
Thank you, Madam President. So Thursday, I believe everyone received an invitation for the first mayor of Malden's birthday celebration. It will be at Fellsmere Pond, July 25th for Elijah Converse. It will be his 199th birthday. So you're all welcome. We're going to have beautiful cake and lemonade, and there'll be descendants from the Converse family that will be in attendance. So pretty cool. I'd love to see you all there. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Murphy.
Yes, well, we have the floor and televised. The 5th Annual Fairy House Festival will be coming up. It will be held Saturday, August 24th from noon to 4 p.m. at Pine Banks Park up on the hill by the pond. Rain date is Sunday the 25th. It's hard to believe this is the 5th annual one, but it's a great event. Bring your family, friends, kids. It's not just limited to Ward 5 or Malden. People come from all over to take part in it. You can pre-build a fairy house and enter it in the Fairy House Walk, and we have all kinds of trophies for the best builds. Or you can just come that day and enjoy our arts and crafts table, face painting, and also the kids can build a fairy house that day. That won't be part of the actual jurying, but it's a great day to get unplugged and just spend some time outdoors with your families, away from iPhones, cell phones, and televisions. So hope to see you there. Thanks.
Thank you. Councilor O'Malley.
Thank you, Madam President. Similar to Councilor Murphy's Hilltop event, Ward 4 has the annual stargazing and storytelling event at Waits Mount. We've been able to nail down a date. It's going to be Saturday, September 7th, 2019. It'll take place at approximately 6 p.m. We've confirmed various telescopes, the storytellers, and we're just in our organizing mode. So if you'd like to participate or join the organizing committee, you can email me at romalley@cityofmalden.org, or you can call me at 781-870-0041. In addition to that, the Friends of the Malden River, in partnership with the Chinese Culture Connection and the Metropolitan Area Planning Council, we'll be having an Exploring the Malden River East Meets West event on Saturday, July 26th from 5 to 7 p.m. The location will be the River Cafe, located beside the Tufts Boathouse, located at approximately 300 Rivers Edge Drive in Medford. Looks to be a great event. There will be Tai Chi, tug of war, face painting, and various other great events. Hope to see you at both. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Crowe.
Thank you, Madam President, and if the council is not enough with appointing, we're actually seeking people that are Malden residents that are interested, one person or whatever, interested in serving on the Community Preservation Committee. Those applications of cover letter and resume are due to Lisa Cagno, L. Cagno, at cityofmalden.org no later than next Friday, August 2nd. This is the council appointment, so we'll go through the same process we did last year with interviewing and bringing up some candidates and making a recommendation. So it's a very, very important committee that has a lot of exciting work to do in the city and really works wonderfully on affordable housing, open space, sustainable development, historical sites that they've just done an incredible amount of work. So if you're interested in serving on that committee, please send your resume and a cover letter to Lisa Cagno with the City Council's office. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Winslow.
Yeah, I just wanted to say on Saturday, August 3rd, Malden Overcoming Addiction is having its family day at Lincoln Common, and I am working with Councilor Crowe. We're hopefully going to have a helmet giveaway that day as well as some bike repair to add to that event. So that's an important event, just a day to celebrate the work of Malden Overcoming Addiction. So hope people can come out for that day. Thanks.
Thank you. Councilor Condon.
Thank you, Madam President, for the last time, but I'd be remiss if I didn't remind everybody we lost a very, very important member of our community on July 3rd, the day before his 89th birthday. His birthday was July 4th. You know, we found time at Deva Park to have a moment of silence to recognize him for his 59 years of dedicated service to the city of Malden as a 12-year mayor. He served on the school committee, served for many years on the city council, as a councilor at large, as a state representative, and we've all had a close relationship with this gentleman every time someone was looking to open up a liquor establishment or a restaurant in our neighborhoods. We would be the first ones that he would call to let us know what was going on, and he always put the residents that we were representing before anything. So at this time, I would offer a moment of silence for the former mayor, James Conway, please.
Thank you. And on behalf of the chair, I would like to invite everybody to Linden's annual movie night, Wednesday, August 21st, starting at 6:30 at the Linden STEAM Academy, Linden Park. We have a snowy bus, popcorn, moon bounce for a couple hours, good time. And weather permitting, of course. I do not have a rain date, so if it rains that evening, the event will be canceled. And also I had the pleasure of meeting with all our public safety officials last Thursday at the fire station to discuss our second annual Malden Public Safety Day. And we have scheduled it for October 6th. So if everybody can put that down in their calendar, we're hoping that it's going to be bigger and better than last year. We have included the DPW this year, and the Board of Health, so we'll have a bunch of new stations. Chief Finn is amazing. This is his baby, and he has totally embraced this day, so I look forward to it. I'm already getting excited for, I don't want to wish the summer away, but I am excited for October 6th. And we are also having a police national night out, August 6th. I'm not sure if any of you are aware of that as well, if you just want to put it in your calendar. I don't know the specifics, but it's August 6th. It's at McDonald Stadium. I'm assuming it's at night, since it's National Night Out, maybe 6 o'clock. I will get the specifics, and I'll make sure to let you all know exactly when, and I'm sure they're also, their social media at the Malden Police is killing it these days. Whoever is behind their Facebook page is doing a phenomenal job, so I'm sure they will let you all know exactly when it is, but next Thursday is August 1st, believe it or not, so just to get it out there that I know, I apologize. And you're away the first week, I'm away the second, so we might have to figure out what day will work for everyone, so we can get the parking. Sure. Councilor Camille.
I apologize, I was late on the button. So I wanted to share with everybody that on Tuesday, August 20th, that Galvin and Barbara Murphy, different Barbara Murphy, of Yankee Pest Control will be hosting the Yankee Pest Jamboree to benefit Bread of Life. The event's going to be held between 5 and 8 p.m. at Yankee Pest Control at 20 Waite Court in Malden. That's right near the Salemwood School, but still in Ward 6. The event is going to be a family-friendly evening of food sampling, music, and more to raise awareness for the Bread of Life's capital campaign to build a new facility in Malden. So please come on down and learn about that capital campaign, and if you can come down and contribute, that would be fantastic. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have a motion to adjourn? Motion to adjourn by Councilor Winslow. All those in favor? Oh, recess to the call of the chair, Councilor Condon. On Councilor Winslow's motion to recess to the call of the chair, all those in favor? All those opposed? Meeting is adjourned.